Thank you so much, Loreto, for that kind introduction. Thank you also for inviting me. My name is Josie Silva. I'm a professor of rheumatology, rheumatologist and internist from Coimbra, Portugal. And I'm really fond of communication and teaching. And I must confess that contrary to many of us, I decided to do my PhD and become a professor because I enjoyed so much teaching, and I felt that I was so badly taught. Not so much because of the science, it came as an addiction to that. And I believe that, maybe that was the basis why I was invited, but actually I believe that God only knows, together with Loreto, why she decided to ask me to present this talk. And it was a difficult one, because even if I had the help of Annamaria, I was, trying to bring into a presentation what I tend to do rather naturally. I don't use that many rules. I was taught by some very good teachers a few years ago, like Reg, which actually impressed my career and interest on this. And I decided then, how can I structure whatever I have in my mind that perhaps make me a good speaker to put it into a presentation. And so, because I didn't have a structure in my mind, I decided to do what everyone does. I asked Dr. Google. And once you go to Dr. Google and ask Dr. Google how to make a good presentation, you will be perhaps as surprised as I was in realizing that there are not hundreds, but thousands, perhaps millions of tips, millions of courses of presentations, of good and bad examples of presentations, and hundreds of ways that you could improve or actually ruin your presentation. And my first approach to this presentation ended up being a list, an enormous list of bullet points, which made me feel, here I am, presenting a lousy talk on how to give a good talk. And so I decided to change it all together, and if you notice that some of the slides are rather sleepy, that's because they were changed between 1 and 5 a.m. tonight, because I was not satisfied with what I had. So in order to do that, and also because there was so much in it that I couldn't put it into 30 minutes, a very important clue for my teaching from the old days came back to my mind. And it basically says that 2 hours won't be enough to say what everyone knows, but 5 minutes probably will suffice for you to say what you bring of new. And I think that we always need to keep that in mind. May I advise you, as I see you interested in the slides, I am very happy to send them to you. I'm actually also recording the presentation, and I'll make it available to everyone if you enjoy it. So I could go through 100 technicalities on how to make your slides. Should you look at your audience? Should you present yourself? How you should dress? But instead of doing that, I'm going to present to you a very good piece of advice, actually a meta-analysis of good technicalities on how to present that I found on the web.
There's some things I hate about PowerPoint, and I figure it's kind of my duty to point them out. So here we go. Here's common PowerPoint mistakes. Number one, people tend to put every word they are going to say on their PowerPoint slides. Although this eliminates the need to memorize your talk, ultimately this makes your slides crowded, wordy, and boring. You will lose your audience's attention before you even reach the bottom of your first slide. Please don't do that anymore, please. Number two, most common, many people do not run spell check. Big mistake. Nothing makes you look stupider than spelling errors. If it's got a red line under it, recheck the spelling. And then finally, I hate this. Avoid excessive bullet pointing, only bullet key points. Too many bullet points, and your key messages will not stand out. In fact, the term bullet point comes from people firing guns at annoying presenters. Hence the bullet point. Bad color schemes, not good. Clashing background and font colors can lead to distraction, confusion, headache, nausea, vomiting, and loss of bladder control. I can't stay on that one too long. Here's something I've noticed. The number of PowerPoint slides you have in your talk, the less useful your talk actually is. Unfortunately, my presentation is right there. I've also noticed this. People love to pack data into their presentations. They shove more and more data thinking it's better, but it's not. The more data you have, the harder it is to read your slide, and the effectiveness plummets. Now you can improve the effectiveness by adding some shading and some 3D effects and then some second order and third order effects, and then, I know, let's add some labels. That'll help a lot. And that's pretty much every marketing slide I've ever seen right there. Yeah. Then some like VP of marketing standing there going, it's real clear in Q4. What the hell are you talking about? Now, I'm into in animation. People become animators in PowerPoint. You can have things flying all over the place, and that can be good. If you're a visual learner, that will improve the effectiveness of your performance. But if you're easily distracted, more animations, and people have no idea what you're talking about. They're just, wow, that is cool, wow. And there's regions here, by the way. There's the simple but effective region. There's the active but confusing, the effective but boring, the active but ineffective, the dull but static region, the busy but useless, the ADD only region, the useful but amusing, the stupid but confusing, the dull triangle, the hyper triangle, the sleepy square, the dizzying pentagon, and everything else I just call pointless motion. That slide right there took me an hour and a half to make, right there. PowerPoint can just suck the life out of you. It's amazing. I've also come up with this. It's a kind of a little science I've invented called font analysis. Basically, the font you choose says something about who you are as a person. There's a huge list of fonts, and you choose one, and that says something about you. So be careful the font you choose. For example, if you choose Courier New, it happens to be my favorite, you're probably organized and structured. If you choose Matisse, it means you're artistic. And if you choose Times New Roman, it means you're lazy, apathetic, and unimaginative, and you always use the default. Oh.
So, how could I ever teach about this in a better manner than this guy? And so this is why I actually decided not to do it. And I think that this is really a very good concentrate of what one has to do or to avoid in order to avoid these obvious errors. I decided instead to present to you the presenter's view, or should I say this presenter's view, not necessarily the PowerPoint's view. And I go back in my student ages, as as I was attending school, particularly medical school, and I made a adaptation of this cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, of Rene Descartes, as I felt that I listen to teachers, therefore I am confused. And the more teachers I listened to, the more confused I was, on what I actually was expected to do. And nowadays, as I feel myself not as a student anymore, but as a physician, as a teacher, as a husband, a father, a citizen, an educator, I believe that I communicate, therefore I am. And if I don't communicate, I am not. Because there is really no social relationship, therefore meaning to any kind of these activities without effective communication. And communication is a two-way process. It's not me talking at someone, it's me discussing, having a conversation with someone. It is involving people in the conversation and the task I want to them. And actually, I am truly fascinated by that. I enjoy it a lot. And I'm truly fascinated by good, expert communicators. I always try to learn from them because it's a process, it's a method that will serve you in so many different areas of our life. I hope that this interest can make me a better teacher, but it surely makes me a happier person as I'm trying to do it. And I believe that also the same can happen to you. What do I take home from courses as I have attended on education? The core messages that I take to me as an educator. One, as teachers and speakers, we do not teach. We facilitate learning. And I think this is a very important aspect. I'm not teaching you anything. The only thing that you might learn from this is what you allow yourself to take from what I say. So I actually create the conditions that hopefully will allow students to learn, but I'm not teaching anyone if they don't want to. And that actually learning, particularly in adults, requires to start and foremost the will of the learner. I cannot teach anything to anyone who is not willing to learn. They need to be engaged on that. They need to be, interested in it. And if they are not, it's my task to try and make it happen. Otherwise, they will not learn because they have no interest. Also, that there needs to be appropriate knowledge on which to build new one. Imagine that you are taking a dictionary to understand the meaning of a word that you did not know, and this is explained on the basis of words that you don't know either. So if you do that, you never learn anything. So you need to be sure that your audience, your students, your trainees have the level of knowledge that makes them capable of understanding what you're trying to build new with them. And also that it needs time and repetition to build new synapses. And I mean that physically. When you learn something, two at least of your neurons have fired together and are now wired together. It needs time for you to manipulate concepts. You need to move around it. You need to have different perspectives of the idea until you really master it. You can, of course, regurgitate the information. You can, of course, regurgitate the sentence that your teacher just told you, but it doesn't mean that you have learned anything. You're just regurgitating undigested information. So we need to take that into account, and I try to take that into my own practice. So in trying to structure effective presentations, I believe that we need to take 3 levels in trying to organize my mind around this. The first one is the attitude and frame of mind. First and foremost, the attitude and frame of mind of the speaker, of the teacher. How do I approach my teaching or learning opportunity? And for that, I would suggest that we should have a very good focus on what the target is and also what the objectives are of what I am doing here. Also, that secondary to that, I should have a strategy to make that happen. But I know what I'm trying to achieve before I'm trying to start it, and only as a tertiary important thing will be the technicalities. Not because they are so important to convey my message, but because if I take them wrong, they will mess with me, they will confuse the message and make it less efficient. So let's try to cover some of these as a sequence. The attitude and frame of mind. The first thing that I think is really important for effective teaching is that you should focus on target. And what is the target? The target is each and every single brain in your audience. Not me. The target is not my mouse, it's certainly not my screen. It's each of your brains working, and I'm trying to simulate them to work in a different manner, in a certain way. I need to have my target also on your educational needs, or what I conceive as being your educational needs. But if I want you to learn and take home anything from this, I need also to take into account your motivational needs. Because if you're not motivated for this, let's say that you are obliged to come to class and you are not really willing or interested in the topic, and I don't manage to do that, you can hardly learn anything because you just drift away on your mind. So this attitude of the speaker is absolutely essential. And I quote to you, let's say, something that I read in a book on education, which says the most important thing happening in the room takes place in the head of the listener, not on the screen or the speaker's mouth. Whatever is important happening here is happening there, because what had to happen in my head already took place, right? This is the moment I'm trying you to, let's say, go into some direction and become interested in some topics. The main objective, on the other hand, of talks, particularly in medicine, should not really be to convey information. Let's face it, the information I give you will stick in your mind probably for about 5 or 10%, for about 2 or 3 hours. Let's even accept that most of what I teach you today in medicine, I'm not sure if it's right. And I'm not sure if it will be right in 10 years' time. Now, I'm teaching my students who are just starting their career They will be practicing medicine 40 years from now. I don't have a clue of what medicine will be then. Why am I so focused on giving them information? What I should be focused is to giving them the methodology, the attitudes that will allow them to build their knowledge, to be critical about what they know, to be critical about what I'm telling them today. I tell my students, don't ever tell me that this is the right answer because I said so. You'll fail. I want you to be critical about what I'm telling you because I want you to be critical about what you will read in 20 years' time. I don't have a clue of what it will be. I want to motivate you to have a passion for being the best possible physician that you can. And if I achieve that, I've achieved everything because the student will become a great professional irrespective of teachers and even sometimes despite some of the teachers. So let's say when I'm teaching, when I'm trying to motivate my students, my trainees, I would say that I have a dream. I don't know when I heard that. And my dream is the same as I have with my children. That I have a dream that I might inspire my students and my trainees towards curiosity. If I could do only one thing, is to build curiosity in my students because they are clever enough. They have been selected for that. They will do an extraordinary job if they want to. That's all I need them to do, right? So I need to stimulate them. I also need, or I want to, inspire my students to the joy of learning and knowing and of discovering things. That makes me so happy. Why shouldn't I spread that happiness to them as well? I want them to be inspired to the satisfaction of doing things right, technically right, and above all, I must confess that, I'm not sure that this should be the aim of everyone, but this is how I feel it. I want them to feel the happiness of doing the right things. Because I chose to be a medic, I didn't choose to be a computer scientist. And so doing the right things is certainly very important here. And I don't take this lightly. It's part of my way of life, and to share a more personal view on that, I'll share with you my latest Christmas card from December 2016. I sent a picture of my grandson. He was my first one, so I'm really happy with that. And if you get to see some of the comments there, I say, may I wish you a continuous enjoyment of the kind of feelings we have been blessed with since the birth early this year of our first grandson, Afonso. A feeling that everything is new, beautiful, and possible. A sense that peace and joy is our natural state, and life keeps giving us reasons to be curious, marveled, grateful, and eager for the future. You just have to look into his eyes. And I believe that you share that. Let's say if you feel a sense of joy and hope on that, people will certainly be grateful that you can share that. And this is actually the logo of my Department of Rheumatology. We are interested in promoting happiness through excellence of care. We are also interested in promoting happiness through excellence of teaching and training. So the strategy in order to achieve that, what might it be? What can you do to stimulate your students? The first one, I think, is that you should convey confidence. The first thing I believe that you need in a speaker is that this person is trustworthy. They know what they're talking about, they have felt, reflected about it, they just don't read it to come and bring it to you, right? And maybe they have copied and pasted some of that. So the confidence is important, and you can only convey confidence if you feel it, right? If you don't, then let them know that you're doing your best, but you're not an expert on the topic. And also, you should convey enthusiasm. And you should convey enthusiasm that your audience can understand. Let us suppose for a moment that I am a Nobel Prize. If I talk to an audience of people I want to stimulate to try and become Nobel Prizes, and I tell them that how much I enjoy the company of the latest Nobel Prize winner, and how much I enjoy, I don't know, the 1 million euro I got, I'm not bringing the enthusiasm you're capable of feeling. The enthusiasm you're capable of feeling is that one of discovery, of engagement, of trying to do better, of making the way towards that. And so I need to do that. But all the time, I believe that we should be using in our teaching techniques the salesman approach. We are selling things. We are selling knowledge, we are selling attitudes, we are selling enthusiasm. So we should try and sell it. And whilst coming here, I decided that I would risk the best demonstration I know of selling a good idea. Who remembers when Harry met Sally? This is the scene of the restaurant. They are arguing about the ability that women have of faking an orgasm, and he's actually doubting that they can do it properly.
Oh, God. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Oh, yes.
She's getting the attention of the audience, right? Everyone is interested, right?
Yes, yes.
And now,
yes, yes. Oh.
her very, very best student, the one she conquered.
Oh.
She's coming up.
I'll have what she's having.
This is what you want to achieve. If your teacher is happy with his life, if he gets such a kick out of his work, maybe you'll feel enthusiastic about getting the same. But I wonder how we can expect our trainees to be enthusiastic about our work in following our footpaths when we show them that we are depressed, that we don't enjoy what you're doing. Your student will just simply think, for God's sake, what am I doing here? I'm making an enormous effort to try and find misery, the same thing as my teacher has. So if you want people to be excited, you need to be excited. And if you allow me, please try your best to only speak about topics that get you one, that are really interesting for you, that you find exciting. But if you can't do that, fake it. Right? For one moment, fake it. Because that's the profession you chose to do. Otherwise, just say, I won't do that, right? Because I do not want to track students into my misery. And that is certainly something responsible to be done. Now, the other issue is how can you, without of course faking an orgasm, how can you convey enthusiasm? Who remembers here Carl Sagan and his presentations, right? He's just marveled at nature. He just finds it such an interesting thing that you want to have the same as he is having, right? Just intelligence at work. And some of the clues that I'd like to show you and I'd like to share with you is that you should show why and how things get you going. Why are you excited about one given topic? And allow yourself to be personal about it. Talk about your grandson or your nephew or your patients or whatever makes sense to you in your heart, because that's what life is all about. Explore that idea from your audience's perspective. You should try to find ways that might be interesting for them, not for you. Let's say the only way that you're trying to make them attracted with what it means to you is because hopefully it means something to them as well. If they are different from you, try to find something that can be attractive to your audience more than to yourself. Use, for instance, clinical cases, humanize stories. If we are in this profession for the right reasons, we resound to that. We like people. That's why clinicians tend to talk to each other all the time on dinners, because we have, as I say, stories with people inside. That's what makes them different from the engineering. There is people inside. Allow feelings and human nature to sneak in. I could agree that perhaps this is easy for me. After all, I'm a Southern European. I was born in Portugal. Actually, I was born in Brazil and live in Portugal, and therefore it's easy for me to cry. But I believe that even for a block of ice, a little tear can drop down if you allow yourself a little bit to be warmed up. And this will captivate other people, I believe. Be natural, be you. Don't ever try to, let's say, steal someone else's style. It won't work, right? Be authentic, be honest at all times, I think. Conveying curiosity and enthusiasm would also be, for the right students, appropriate by highlighting the uncertainties that persist. We spend most of our time talking about the things we know, and this is not what makes progress. What makes progress is the doubts we have in our minds, and we don't discuss them much, particularly with our trainees, but they are also opportunities. Opportunities of a job, opportunities of a career, opportunities of happiness for them, because we still don't know, we are still not treating our patients as well as we'd like. Share the joys of discovery, of good clinical practice. Tell them of the orgasms you had in the lab, or when you did that stats or the epidemiology, you proved that your theory was right. Be honest at all times in what you present and what you discuss as well. Practicing or producing engaging presentations should always take into account what your students already know and what they do not know. You need to be prepared to introduce basic principles if you believe that these people don't master it, because then, if this is the case, they will not have the language to follow you on, and this is, of course, crucial for communication. To produce also engaging presentations, try to build a story in your presentation. And like children's story, it has a beginning, right? Once upon a time. What is the problem? What are the questions? What are the context? The middle, what is the evidence available? What progress has been made? What are your contributions? Don't fill up your presentations with your contributions unless this is all about you. If you're going to present the Nobel Prize, let's say, paper, then it's fine. But it's usually not the case. And also, at the end, what are the conclusions? What do we know and what we do not know? And this is probably as exciting as what we know. Also, that we should select a small number of key messages. The presentation was right. You know, if you have too many, most of them will be forgotten. And that you need to activate receptors. You have probably noticed that these two excellent speakers that came before me did that. They just started, for instance, with the picture of the child. You're just being activated. What do I know about this? What are my thoughts? Everyone knows about something related to that. But I bring your receptors up so that then we can build new knowledge, right? I try to tell you about how excited I am about teaching. I brought you this piece of humor so that you then have your receptors for what is to come next. You just don't start talking to people. They should say what they know, what they need, or why they need to learn more. Just to tell them, well, have you enjoyed learning this bit? You can't imagine what knowing the rest is. It's really fantastic. It's a kick out of it. You want to know more? Come with me, right? This is the idea, I think. Be prepared to explain basic concepts if needed. Make key messages very clear. And if you have a key message, hypothesize, argue, and conclude. And I believe that punchlines, like the one I presented to you, saying the most important thing, this kind of thing, I believe they are very important on communications as well. Summary points are usually also a good idea. And there are, of course, good reasons to avoid excessive detail. They are boring. People want to know what is the meaning of it. And if your talk is about the methodology, then it's fine. Go into all the detail. But in general, your public will not be very sensitive to that. Simplify, simplify, simplify. That's the main message. It's always too much to be told. As you suggested a while ago that you talk too much, well, so do I. Delivering presentations. I would suggest 2 or 3 things. You should train your presentation. You should consider your tone, your timing, your dressing even. I was just, before coming here to decide should I wear a tie or not a tie, how will people feel that? And this is relevant because I respect you. I want you to feel related to whatever I decided to bring to you. Consider humor. If you feel like it, don't feel obliged to do it if you don't enjoy it and if you don't feel confident. But please try not to memorize or write all your presentation. It looks artificial when you do that. I can accept that in the early phases of your training, but later on, you should be able to use those slides just as a prompt so that you explain your ideas. You don't read everything, and you don't have by heart everything that you want to say, unless, of course, you must and you don't feel confident to do it otherwise. Delivering presentations, try to be animated. One of the things that I think are perhaps key to some success that I have as a speaker is pauses. If I tell you the key to really engage your students is your enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. Or if I tell you the key to really engage your students in enthusiasm, this is very important that you show your students that you are excited about your topic. Now, what are the two ways of speaking made the difference upon you? If I'm giving you really an important message, I think it's clever, wise, to allow your time to let it sink in, and then you come back, and maybe you repeat it. And if I say enthusiasm 3 times, maybe you remember it among the 10% that you have in your mind in 2 or 3 hours' time. Pauses and repetitions can be good, I believe. Punchlines too. And I'm about to finish, I'm sorry. Engage your audience with your eye contact. That is really very important. You have seen certainly speakers that will come to you and will read the slides, and even if when they try to look at you, they will look at everything, okay? Now, I can also look at you blindly like that. I'm not sure if you realize that through my presentation, I focused on you here, I focus on you there, I focus on you there. I don't need to focus on each one of you, because if I look at you, it's not so sure that your colleagues on your side realize that I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at an area. I'm looking at another area, at another area. I'm trying to engage you in the same way as we engage children, right? Talk to me. Mm-hmm. What did you do this morning? And let's pretend that she's my daughter. Mm-hmm. Look me in the eye, right? That's trust, right? I'm engaging you and involving you in that. Create the need for the next slide. This is something I like doing. Let's say, instead of presenting one slide and being surprised by it, oh yeah, okay? I like to tell you, talk you about things, and so that you feel that something is missing here. And if I do that, I hope that I'm engaging your attention. And when the slide comes up, right? So that I don't tell you everything. Some people will, and I'm talking to you about animations, believe that my animations are too many and that I'm just animating one piece at a time. I do it on purpose because I believe that if I have 10 bullet points and I present them all to you, you read through them. And when I finally talk about the 5th, you had already read the 10th and you didn't pay attention at all to what I said to you, right? And so if I have a point, and I should only have a bullet point, if I have a point, I want you to go with me through each one of them. But, you know, of course, there's no right or wrong on this. So I will end by offering you a last good example. The key message is think about it. Think about what you're doing as a teacher, as a speaker.
Next research initiatives in the CMOS. Oh, wait. So this is not the right. Sorry, I'm very sorry. This really never happened. Good. I like the applause. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about nanoelectronics research initiatives beyond the CMOS area, and there are a number of people that we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged here.
It's right on the computer.
Thanks. Okay. So we wanted to really give them credit. So you guys with me? Good? Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. Can you please explain what MOSFET stands for?
Are you serious? I'm sorry. Okay, so if you don't know what that is, you probably shouldn't be here, but we can talk about it afterwards. So if anybody has that confusion, we can really talk about that later, but I really don't want to take the time to get into those kind of basics right now, okay? All right, thanks. So basically...
Summary points. My summary points would be that you should be prepared and be respectful. Respectful of your audience, of their needs, of your role, that you decided to do it, so you ought to do it properly. 2, that you should focus on your audience's needs and motivations and avoid spelling mistakes whenever you can, right? 3, that you should be reflective, as in everything, like in medicine and in the practice of medicine. As a teacher, as a speaker, you should reflect about what you do. Am I doing it well? Would I enjoy my talk if I was sitting there, right? What could get me on? What would get me to sleep? And what should I put in my presentation as well? Being reflective also means that sometimes when you are watching a very good presentation, you might perhaps deliver your mind a little bit away from the content and look at the method. How is this guy getting me going? Why am I so excited about this presentation? What are his techniques that I may use, or hers, of course? That you should be clear on what you want to make happen in the brain of the listener. And I hope that you don't want just to deposit a piece of new information. You want to get this person motivated to learn more, much more than what you can tell them on that particular day, and that you try to engage the audience to foster curiosity and to foster joy for being here and for using what you learn to do that. Delivering effective presentations can actually be made easy, I believe. You just have to always put yourself in your audience's shoes. What would I like to see? What would I hate to see? And with that, thank you very much.